Welcome to the Hokie Hoops podcast, a Sons of Saturday show. I'm your host, Pete B. I've got Ed Williams and Mike McDaniel. How you doing, fellas?
Good, man. Nice little 1-2 stretch. Could have been better, but no complaints overall, I guess.
Yeah, we just had a game last night that was against Georgia Tech, but we did beat NC State since we last recorded. That's the men. They beat NC State 79-76, then we lost to Wake and we lost to Georgia Tech. How you feeling, Mike, about the team after these last couple games?
They were two winnable games. Tech was right in the game against Wake, got away from them late. I mean, I feel like we've been telling that story a lot in conference play and the losses, right? Outside of the Duke blowout, it's been hang around, don't make enough shots or don't get the stop or turn the ball over too much, which they've been mostly better about lately. Mm-hmm. It's kind of been the story of the season. It's team is still playing pretty well, right? Hanging in there, I think. And there's still some encouraging signs, even though, they're coming off of back-to-back losses now.
Yeah. Let's talk about the win first, since that happened the longest time ago. And it was kind of a crazy game. NC State was up 15 early in the second half and up by 11 with under 7 minutes left. Jaden Schutt was awesome down the stretch, though. Got a couple buckets, hit a three. The free throws, 9 points for him in the final 3 minutes, as by my count. I think that's correct. The foul was also legitimate at the end. I know, you don't want to end the game on a call kind of like that, but we did a great job coming back. He hit the free throws, and then we finished the game with that dunk by Ben Burnham, which was just a fun little highlight, even though it was meaningless. Toby really carried us in the first half, though, Ed. I thought he played pretty well early on and had a double-double.
Yeah, Toby was really good, and then this was kind of the highlight of Jaden Schutt's time as a Hokie so far. He was really good, especially like you said, Pete, down the stretch. Overall, Burnham was really good too. So you had some guys step up and Schutt and Burnham who have been both good at times, but overall a little bit inconsistent in their play, and they both played really well in this one. Picking up the slack from everybody else. Outside of Toby, the starters scored 5, 3, 3, and 8, and then you had the 12 from Burnham and 17 from Schutt. Schutt came off the bench in this one. Coach Young started Jaden Young. So, Brown played 28 minutes, Burnham 27, Schutt 28, all off the bench. It was an interesting rotation throughout, but it was really nice to see Jaden Schutt kind of step up and hit some shots that he's capable of making. We just haven't seen a lot of it so far.
Yeah, he had some confidence as the game was finishing up. And like you said, 17 off the bench, and then Burnham had 12 also off the bench. So a lot of good contributors from that bench unit. Tyler Johnson started and had 5 and 6 in this game. Not his highest point total, but he had some other good games we'll talk about shortly. We shot 50% from three, despite our best three-point shooter, Mike, and Rodney Brown going 1 of 5. But Toby Lawal was 3 of 3 from three. I was shocked by that.
Yeah, pick up the slack somewhere, right? I was really encouraged by the defense in the second half. I thought NC State made a lot of tough shots in the first half. Thought the defense played okay. Better in the second half. NC State missed some open ones that helped. Schutt got hot. It was really a bunch of good things came together in the second half. I feel like this year we've seen a lot of good play in the first half, and we've seen this team fade. They get tired or they just don't make enough shots late. This team has been very inconsistent in terms of making jump shots this year, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say. And the second half is when they got hot and they needed to, trailing by 11 at halftime. So defense played better. NC State missed some shots, which was helpful. And then, the team started making some open looks in the second half, which was really encouraging to see.
There's a lot of talk after the game about the coach of NC State, Keats, and his failure in this one, and just they're not having a great following season after the Final Four run. Do you guys think that run was fluky, or what are your thoughts on Keats, Ed?
He would have been fired without that run anyway. And he's right back on the track he was heading down prior to that run last year. Can't take it away from him. That was a crazy run, but it wasn't like even their run to the ACC title was not even comparable to when we did it, because when we did it heading down the stretch of that season, we were playing really good basketball, won whatever it was, 10 of the last 12 or whatever in the regular season. When they did it, it was just straight up got hot in the tournament itself. So, Keats was definitely on a really hot seat last year before March, and then cooled it off. But it's hot again.
The
Pulled it
fans,
off,
yeah,
pulled it
are
off,
not
and
happy.
pulled it off and got an extension off of it. Remember, like he
Yeah.
triggered an
Oh,
extension
yeah,
from the
that's
Final
right.
Four run. Now, I don't think from what I remember, from what I understand, it didn't like materially affect the buyout, right? So like if NC State wants to get out of it, I think they still can. But you'll remember like his contract got an auto extension because
Yeah.
of the run that he made. He had an incentive in his contract where he made it either to like the Sweet 16 or beyond, something like that he would get another year or two added onto his deal, and that's what happened. So I don't know. I mean, NC State hasn't been very good this year, and Keats got kind of lucky. Team got hot, right? And you can't take that away. Like you can't take a Final Four run away from a coach. Like that's great, but I think looking back on it, it's like, man, he's pretty fortunate that happened, or else he probably would have been without a job at the end of the last season.
Yeah, we're on the cusp of this NFC title game between my team and Ed's team. And it reminds me a little bit of like the Doug Peterson run to the Super Bowl, and Nick Foles just went nuclear, and like
Don't want to talk about that. You know, I think I'm good.
Yeah, that
I'm
was against
good.
Mike's team.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
just
good on
thinking
that.
like those things happen in sports where sometimes a coach, like I kind of thought Doug was an idiot for a while, and then like he got us that Super Bowl, and it's like, oh, maybe he's a good coach. And didn't he just get fired at the Jaguars? Like
You
so,
did, yeah.
So like maybe he's not that good a coach, and Nick Foles was just unbelievable. And I think that's a Keats situation. What's happening there? But a great comeback victory for the Hokies. Great way to finish. And we got our third win in ACC play with that one. We go on and we play Wake. We lose 72-63. It was essentially even at the half, which we've seen a number of times in ACC play. And then we steadily faded like we tend to do. We only shot 40% from the field, 14 turnovers. I do take some solace, Ed, in the fact that Wake team is 7-1 in ACC play right now. They're pretty solid.
That's a good team, and they're gonna make, in all likelihood, make the NCAA tournament. That's a good team. You know, Hunter Salas, best player on the floor, not even really close. You know, I know that team has probably almost 3x the NIL budget that we have. And, you know, we competed with them we're down by 2 at half, ended up, slipping away in the second half, largely due to Hunter Salas just kind of taking the game over. Yeah, he's a big time player. He'll be in the conversation for first team all ACC. And, overall, though, I thought Virginia Tech played well. We doubled them up in the turnover category, unfortunately, but we only had 14, which isn't terrible. But when you only force 7, it's not great. We did out rebound them, and that was another thing we did really well in the NC State game. Out rebounded NC State by 11, and then Wake by 6. But yeah, I mean that's kind of one where you're just a little bit outmanned roster wise. Obviously not to quite the extent that we were against Duke, but they have guys we don't have, and they have guys we recruited. Juke Harris was someone that was on campus a few times, and ultimately lost out to him. Going down there to Wake, but yeah, it's just it's a bummer. But again, that would have been a really good win, and it's kind of just whatever loss.
Yeah, and I said it many times on this show already that like I hate playing Wake right now. I don't like the matchup for us. It never seems to go well. But we did have Toby with the double and Tyler Johnson, 9 and 10. Mike, like 3 assists, nothing really of note. But like watching that freshman continue to play well is exciting.
He's really consistent. Like he's playing consistent ball, and that's really encouraging. He's getting huge minutes as a freshman. It's going to pay off down the road, as long as Virginia Tech can keep him in the fold. Obviously, Hildreth and Salas obviously like killing Virginia Tech down the stretch. Mike Young basically mentioned like there's just no answer for him late in the game. It's like Forbes kind of knew that Virginia Tech had no real matchup for Hildreth and Salas, and they just like kept getting in the ball, and that's what well-coached teams do. They find the mismatch to get the ball in the hands of their best players. And to Forbes' credit, he did the same thing against North Carolina. North Carolina had a lot of trouble guarding Hildreth and Salas as well, and they took over that game down the stretch and got another big win a few nights later. So they're going to do that to a lot of teams this year. And like Ed mentioned, I mean, Tech is in a spot right now where Wake's got better guys, and you might not have seen that at halftime, or at least seen it coming to the extent that the offensive onslaught came in the second half, but down the stretch, I mean, they dominated the game. Virginia Tech did not have any answers.
Yeah. I did just look up NBA mock draft, Salas is right at the tail end of the second round. So he's a draftable player right now, and that's
he's a good player.
he's pretty good. All right, Georgia Tech, we lose 71-64, and this was pretty similar to the Wake game. The Wake game got a little bit more out of hand because we managed to grab a lead in the second half for a bit, only down one, I think, with 5 minutes left, but we just couldn't close it. And it was the shooting in this one. We only shot 40% against Wake. It was 37 in this one and 17 turnovers. We shot better from 3, Ed, than we did from 2 in this game.
They missed an unbelievable amount of layups. Patrick Wessler missed
the putbacks that we missed like 3 in a row at one point.
Yeah, I mean, Hammond had one that he drove all the way to the hole, put it up off the backboard, and I think it touched every square inch of that rim and came out. Rodney Brown missed 3 layups on one play.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been, I mean, he went from whatever he would have been to 3 for 7 from the floor, 3 misses on one play. So, yeah, I actually thought Rodney played a really good game. But yeah, dude, like what a weird one. That one stings. Like watching that one really stings because that was a team in Georgia Tech that isn't that good anyway. I think they had a couple guys out.
It was winnable.
Probably should have won that one. I get it. It was on the roads. That that's a piece of it. But man, that one really felt like one that we should have won. And we reverted back to some of the issues we've been having kind of during non-conference play, especially in the turnover department. 17 turnovers against a team that's just really not all that good. They are athletic and long and can cause a little bit of havoc. And they did some things defensively that gave Virginia Tech a hard time. But like 5 turnovers from Rex Steiner, 3 from Johnson, 3 from Rodney Brown. Patrick Wessler only played 10 minutes, had 2 turnovers and 2 fouls.
He did not have a strong effort.
No. No, I mean, there was one particular stretch where I think we were up 2. They were shooting free throws. They make the first, miss the second. We get a lane violation. They make the next one. No, they missed it again. And then we couldn't get a rebound on a free throw. They got fouled and scored 2 more points. And then they had the lead and never really looked back. And I'm just like, that's just the stuff that can't happen. I mean, that reminded me of the Pitt game when we're winning and turn the ball over on 3 straight possessions. Like you're just handing other teams free points, and you just can't afford to do that right now.
No. Like I'm looking at, when you look at the time, Wessler was in for 10 minutes. He had 1 point, which is kind of difficult to do, and 2 turnovers. And Ronnie Brown was only in there for like 11 minutes or something. And he had, 10 points and 11, whatever. He had like double-digit points in a very short period of time. And could have had even more if he didn't miss all those layups. So yeah, Wessler was not, he had a bad game. We have to talk about Johnson again, because I'm looking at, after this game, he had 14 and 5 in this one. Again, he's a freshman. He's played more minutes and has 25 more rebounds on the year than Elijah Poteet. More minutes than Poteet. And I think it's 50% more rebounds than Poteet on the season. More assists, more steals, and more blocks than Poteet as well. Like I want to focus on the positive of Tyler Johnson, but we're watching Poteet kind of slip back into what he was doing earlier in the year again.
Yeah, he struggled yesterday. Go ahead, Mike.
He's struggling. I think Mike Young's having trouble with the rotations a little bit, not because of anything he's doing. He's just like having trouble finding production consistently from like the same guys on a night-to-night basis.
Very hard, yeah.
Which, I think that happens when you're dealing with the young roster, number one. Like guys are just naturally going to be a bit more inconsistent. But like Rodney Brown only getting 11 minutes here kind of confused me, like with how he played in those 11 minutes. I mean, Ed, you mentioned the fact that, Rodney's 3 of 7 from the floor. He had 3-point blank missed layups in like the same possession. So, I mean, really, if he makes even one of those, his shooting numbers look a lot better. 3 for 7 is still not bad. This team is not going to overcome bad shooting and a ton of turnovers. You can overcome one of those two. You can overcome a poor shooting night with good defense and a low turnover rate and keep yourself in the game and maybe sneak one out if you're shooting decent enough from 3. You can overcome a high turnover night if you're hitting a bunch of 3s. It's really hard to overcome both when you're a good team, let alone a team as young and inexperienced as Virginia Tech is, right? So that was kind of the story of the game for me. I didn't watch this game live. I was putting my son to bed, and I watched it back. I saw some texts from you guys about it, and I was like, oh, boy, here we go. So it was a little bit of a hate watch for me, watching it back because I kind of knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the point blank layups, we didn't mention that in our text thread, and that was when I was watching it back, that was really frustrating. I was like, man, there were so many missed opportunities in this game on a poor shooting night anyway. When you miss a bunch of point blank layups, it just kind of rubs salt in the wound.
If you're gonna
I
have
was
17,
texting
sorry, go ahead.
I was texting with Chris Arvin from 24/7 Sports during the game, and he was like, "It's like I think our missed layup count is like 8 now," and then he immediately goes, "Oh, now it's 9." It was just like point blank misses, and we really
and you lose by 7.
Really should have
right?
controlled that game really should have controlled that game, and the turnover thing too. Like, I just closed my box score down, but I believe it was
It's 17.
6 assists
turnovers
for Brandon Rechsteiner and 5 turnovers. Outside of the turnovers, he played a good game, shot the ball well, hit the mid range really well, and passed really well, except for the 5 turnovers. And you can't do it. Like, you can't have that many turnovers.
It's what Andy Bitter had talked about during the football season. It's whack-a-mole with this team. It's like if we fix one thing, then the turnovers come back. If we fix the turnovers and the shooting goes away. In this game, we couldn't shoot and we had a lot of turnovers and we still only lost by 7 points. Like, it was such a winnable game and definitely one that's going to look back on the season and be a little frustrating. Let's talk about Ben Hammond, because he did come back against Wake. Played 25 minutes, but only 4 points and 1 assist. Just 16 minutes against Georgia Tech. And this is something that Mike just talked about, the rotations. Like, Poteet only played like 10 minutes against NC State. You got Jaden Young only getting a few minutes here. Like, he's really moving things around quite a bit, I guess, based on matchups. But 2 of 15 from the field for Ben Hammond since coming back from the injury. It's a shame because he seemed to be playing at such a high level in that Miami game. And now, like, he looks like a freshman again. I'm hoping.
Yeah, he's just working his way back, I think.
Yeah,
I think
his feet will get under him.
I mean, he didn't shoot well in the box score, but like I said, he had one layup that literally hit every inch of the rim and came out. Had another floater that went down and out. I mean, he just unfortunate on that stuff. But I think he'll continue to he'll find his footing again as he works his way back from that injury.
Shoots has been improved, which is nice. The 17 against NC State, the 12 against Wake. He's made 8 of his last 17 threes. So the shooting for shoot has come along. And then Toby with 2 double-doubles in the last 3 games. He's had double-digit points in 6 of the last 7 games. So he's becoming more consistent. He still turns the ball over a little too much. It depends on the game that you go to. But he's a highlight every game, which has been nice.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm encouraged by Hammond because of what we saw before the injury. I'm a little less concerned, right? Because of kind of how his feet were. It's more like unfortunate, right? He was getting his feet under him and then he hurt his foot. But like he was getting more and more comfortable, has the injury since he's gotten back. It's been kind of up and down. I don't know. I mean, Mike Young really wants to play him a lot of minutes, and I understand why. Like, when Rex Steiner's played a lot, he's turned it over a bunch. He hasn't shot it great. Hammond gave you the really encouraging string of games before he was hurt. Again, this is just kind of a rotations thing. They're struggling to find production out of the backcourt consistently. I think Mike Young felt like he had that with Hammond, or was like at least starting to get some semblance of consistency there before he was injured. And it's just been the story of the last few seasons, as we know. Like, we don't need to dive into all that, but like, not having Heisier Miller here is a tough circumstance, and you're forced to play guys before they're ready. And Young's been in that situation the last few years, but he's had Padula, and now this year you don't, and you're playing guys big minutes before they're ready. So you just got to kind of take the lumps and kind of roll the punches a little bit.
To be as competitive as we've been, like, piecing this together, like, every game is a puzzle for Mike Young. Like, he's having to like try to piece together the minutes, the matchups, and everything else. And we're coming close. But as Ed has repeatedly said, you get into the second half and we just cannot keep it up. And sometimes we've come back, like against NC State, the Miami game. We fought really hard to the end, got the W1. Thank God, by the way, because Miami cannot get a win. I don't think they've won since like November or something.
4-14 now, I think.
Yeah, like they were in the Final Four, like, I don't know, 19 months ago.
Like, yeah, not long ago. Yep.
It's wild, but we're 168th in the Ken Palm right now. The ACC actually has 5 top 35 teams, which is better than I was expecting. Duke is number
And Wake's
1.
not one of them. And Wake is not
Right.
one of them.
They're not.
Yeah.
And in fact, Wake is like in the 70s, I think. I mean,
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I don't think they've gone up against a ton of the top teams, but it's number 1 is Duke in the KenPom, number 1 in the country. Louisville, 23. Clemson. And you were all over that Louisville thing. You're like, they're going to be back.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be good. And like Louisville was a disaster last season. You can just turn it around so quickly. I think are you still there, Ed?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right, good. There we go.
Clemson 26, Pitt and UNC are 32 and 33 respectively. So those are your top 5 teams in the league. We got to play a couple of those guys still. So I think that's one of the reasons our KenPom is struggling is that we haven't gone up against a ton of the top teams despite playing well in a bunch of these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played Pitt and played well. I mean, we have 2 against Clemson. I know that. 1 coming up, but we play them 2 more times.
Yep. Play them Saturday, then at the end of the year. So,
and Clemson is at home this Saturday, right? It's in Castle.
Yeah, it's in Castle. I don't know. Like, I feel like with the way the ACC has been and kind of how this has gone this year so far, I think overall, if you're a Virginia Tech fan, I think people are going to start paying more attention to basketball now that like college football's over. Like, you're looking for something to watch. I think people are going to start tuning in a little bit more to men's games. I think people started tuning out after a Jacksonville loss early in the year. They were like, oh my God, this team's going to be awful. It's like night and day now compared to where they were at a couple months ago to where they are now. And this is one of Mike Young's better coaching jobs in his time in Blacksburg, considering what's on the roster and kind of how they've looked. And, you know, it's a down ACC and all that stuff. You mentioned, though, like 5 in the top 40 or 35, whatever it was, in the KenPom. And there's still some teams on here that Virginia Tech's going to play down the stretch that are good teams. That Virginia Tech, outside of that Duke game so far this year, right? Outside of Duke, and I think we can all argue like that's a little bit of an aberration because of how good Duke is this year. Virginia Tech's been competitive in these games against pretty decent competition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of, can you close these games out? The one thing I just wanted to note, I've been trying to find a theme, right? I've been trying to like draw a line across like all of these close losses against teams that are like mediocre to good in the ACC that we've lost to so far. I've been trying to find the common thread, and like Tech's been lowering the turnover count in most of these games, right? Since, I don't know, the last, I don't know, say last month or so, they've been lowering the turnover count.
They've been lowering it, yes. Last game wasn't great, but
last game wasn't great, right? Yeah. So I mean, Georgia Tech notwithstanding, they've been lowering the turnover count, but it just feels like the freshmen, especially, like they're getting tired late in games, and I think this is the time of year where that starts to wear on you a bit more, right? You see the outburst at the start, you see him get tired down the stretch. It's kind of like they're starting to hit the freshman wall. We saw it with like Sean Padula a few years ago. He was starting to hit a freshman wall. This happens, right? But then you see a guy like Tyler Johnson, who's a freshman. He's producing and playing really good basketball. He's our most consistent player most nights with Toby. So I don't know. I think it's just youth. Like, I think that's what I'm boiling it down to. It's just youth.
Yeah, and they showed a graphic last night. It was I don't believe it was ACC. I believe it was in the country. And we have played the most underclassmen of any team. We had 10, and the next closest was like 3 teams who were playing 9 guys who were underclassmen.
Yeah,
my God.
So, I mean, we are playing. I mean, I just look at the box score from last night. Tyler Johnson, Ben Hammond, Patrick Buster's a junior, Rex Steiner, Brown, and Young. They're all
sophomores.
Yeah, they're all freshmen or sophomores. Well, I don't even know what's Schutz's classification. I guess he's a sophomore too.
Yeah, I think he's a sophomore.
So it's just, it's a very young team. And one more thing, and then I guess we can turn the page to the women. I was looking at this, and I noticed it during the game, but I didn't really I kind of just like, wow, that second unit really struggling tonight. The turnover count for the starters: Toby had 2, Melajra 1, Johnson 3, Hammond and Shoot 0 apiece. And then on the bench, we had 2, 5, 3, and 1. So the turnovers are coming from the reserves for the most part. It speaks to the lack of depth. And
everyone's taken their turn on the turnover thing. Like some nights, like the bigs are terrible. Some nights the bigs are really good with turning the ball over. And I don't know the rhyme or reason for that and why it hasn't. Like, it was improving, and now I'm worrying that it's kind of going back. But hopefully we can get to the stage again where Ed, I said like Hammond shouldn't give up this point guard role for as long as he's at Tech, the starting point guard role. Well, then he got hurt and now he's struggling again. So hopefully as we get into ACC play, he gets more comfortable again because Tyler Johnson, he may hit that freshman wall. He hasn't hit it yet. Like he kind of, maybe it was in early ACC play was when he was struggling, but he's playing really good right now. And that's super encouraging. And I'm just continue to be impressed with what Mike Young has been able to do with this team from where it was about 2 months ago to where it is now.
Yeah, and it's really a bummer. And this is another thing Chris and I were exchanging messages about last night. But if this team were to have Hyzier Miller or Jaden Ivy Curry, two guys who were committed to play at Virginia Tech at one point during that window, Miller we've talked about, Ivy Curry got more money and went elsewhere. If we had either of those guys, I think it's not crazy to say that we're 3 wins better at this point.
Yeah,
agree.
And maybe 3 wins on the season, or just I think it might be more
on the season. It might be more.
It might be more. Yeah.
I mean, 3 wins in the season flips you from 8-11 to 11-8. I mean,
yeah, that's probably about right. That's probably about right.
Real quick, Rex Steiner. So he had 5 turnovers last night. That's the 5th time this year he's had at least 4 turnovers in a game. 3rd time he's had at least 5. So
yeah,
and he came off the bench, right? I mean, he came off the bench, played 24 minutes, had 5 turnovers, led the team. I mean,
I'm wondering if
he's
better in smaller usage. I mean, you really can't play him. Like how many minutes did he play last night, Mike?
He played 24. He played 24 minutes last night. But I just want to note this, right? That's the first time he's had. The last time he had at least 4 turnovers was December 12th against North Carolina A&T. So like it's his first high turnover game in a while. And his minutes have been a bit like everybody else. His minutes have been a bit all over the place. But like look at the Cal game, right? January 11th, he had no turnovers in 23 minutes. Against Stanford, he had two turnovers in 27 minutes.
And that is a sign of a young player, but it is a little bit like, okay, man, like let's. I just feel like you got to play him less and play Hammond and Rodney handling the ball as much as possible, as much as you can get away with.
Right. And I mean, he had a 5 turnover game against Pitt. He played 34 minutes. That was his career high in minutes on the year, right? He had 5 turnovers. He had 5 turnovers in 36 minutes in the loss to Jacksonville early in the year. But like these other high turnover games, right? 2 additional 4 turnover games and 1 5 turnover game have come in less than 25 minutes per night. So it's like,
he can cough it up quick.
He's just he's adding it. They add up quick, and I think Pete, for the most part, the thing you said about like the lower usage, I think that's correct, like in totality. But then I look at like 3 of his high turnover games have been in games where he's played less than 25 minutes.
And you can tell early, right? Like Ed is, we'll be like 3 minutes into a game, and Ed's like, doesn't have it tonight. Like you can tell Rec just like doesn't have it sometimes.
Doesn't have it.
And it's a shame, but we should move on to the women, guys, because they're the much better team of these 2 teams. They are now 13-5, 4-3 in the ACC. They play Pitt tonight on the road, one of the worst teams in the ACC. So I'm really hoping, despite it being a road game, that we can come away with that one. But we had a disappointing loss to UVA prior to the Louisville game, which we'll cover in more detail. But we lose 73-65 in Castle. First half was dead even, but then the wheels just fell off in that third quarter, Ed. We got outscored by 15 points. Like, what was going on there? Was it the turnovers for them? Was it rebounds? Like, what was the problem for the ladies in that third quarter against UVA?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch this one, unfortunately. I was traveling for work, but it seems like there's been just, for the most part, more highs than lows for this team, but they have been kind of inconsistent and riding a little bit of a roller coaster. You get a really good win and then you struggle in the next one coming out. I was surprised to see that they struggle with this Virginia team, though. It wasn't a Virginia team that I thought was super good. I know Kimora Johnson's a really good player, but I was surprised to see them struggle. And her. I was surprised to see them struggle, especially at home. So I'll be curious to see how they play, when they get up to JPJ later in the year. But yeah, I wasn't able to watch this one in its entirety. So unless one of you two were, I'll kick it over to you guys.
Well, I was Mike. Do you think it was? Were we looking ahead to the Kitley game in Louisville?
Probably a little bit. I mean, I think more than anything, it's just like the struggles on the glass. Like Lattimore had 15 rebounds. I mean, she just killed it. I mean, 24 and 15 can't happen. Turn the ball over 17 times, you 6-20 from 3 can't happen, right?
Yeah.
Like can't happen. So this is one of those things where it's like confluence of bad things happen. You know, you got
It was
a
sloppy.
poor shooting night, sloppy, poor shooting night, get killed on the glass against one of UVA's 2 good players. You know going in, like Lattimore's a very good rebounder. You know going in, like she's got the potential to pop off like that, and you allow her to. Then you turn it over. Then you don't shoot well. It's just a bad recipe.
Yeah. They weren't focused because they even missed a bunch of free throws in this game. It was all sides. They couldn't hit threes, missed free throws, boards, turnovers. Like they hit all the high notes, or should I say low notes?
Nothing good.
Nothing good. Rose still nearly had a double-double. She was 15 and 9, but she has just been so good this year. And it was a close loss, but yeah, this UVA team's not very good. We shouldn't have lost to them in Castle. But let's move to Louisville because that was this past Sunday. I was at a bar to watch football, but to my happiness, they had the Tech game. You know, I was down in Raleigh. They had the Tech game against Louisville on the screen, so I was able to pay attention to both at the same time. And the game outcome was great because we won. But the story of the day was retiring the 33. It became a reality. There was no shortage of fanfare. I feel like they did the correct amount of coverage, whether it was interviews with Liz prior to the game. They had her at the desk during the game, Kelly Gramlich. And then I think there was like a dinner at the University Club, I believe. And what did you think about the banner reveal and all that kind of stuff?
It was awesome. I mean, it was so cool. Liz did a great job on the desk with Kelly there. She did really. It was a long segment too because there was no stoppages, so she was just kind of stuck there talking about the game. But she's the best, man. I mean, she's an all-time Hokie. She's a great ambassador for the school. She loves Virginia Tech. She talks about it as much as she possibly can, how much she loves Virginia Tech and wants to see this program continue to succeed and get the support that it had, when she was there. And it was very cool. The ceremony was great. Transparently, I thought the banner could have been a little bit nicer, but hey, that's neither here nor there.
I'm with you, man.
You said it, not me.
I thought it was going to be like a jersey, like kind of like a faux jersey that hung down.
I don't like the ones that they redid in Castle. I guess it was 2 years ago now, where they redid all of them. I liked the older ones better. I thought those were, more like old school traditional. Like this is what retired jerseys look like in most stadiums in the country. But no, the coloring on Liz's doesn't match the one next to it. Like
the Hokie.
I don't really understand that. But hey, we still don't have a defensive coordinator, and it's been like 50 days. So
why do we screw this stuff? Why do we screw this stuff up? We just find a way to mess this stuff up.
There was no Sean Taylor statue, but it wasn't.
I wasn't based on based on some things I've heard about how the women's basketball Final Four banner went in Castle. I wasn't surprised. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough.
There was also a bobblehead, right? Like they had the Liz.
That was cool. The bobblehead was great. They did a good job.
It looked good. Yeah.
To the surprise,
credit's due.
to the surprise of nobody, Liz stayed after the game and was signing autographs. Signed every last one of them. Was at the arena almost 3 hours after the game went final. To the surprise of absolutely nobody here and probably nobody listening, she always does the right thing.
She's the best.
So always does the right.
Yeah, I texted her the next day and said, or Billy and I texted her in a group chat, just the old Queens of Castle chat, and he said congrats, and I said, yeah, I was gonna tell you congrats, but I figured you might still be in Castle signing autographs. So that video from David Cunningham on Twitter is awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy how many people were there, and she signed them all, and it was very good attended. 9,000 was about the reported attendance, and I believe it. So nearly the capacity of Castle to see that jersey retirement, despite the Queens not being there anymore. It's pretty great in the game, because we have to talk about the game. We led throughout, but definitely had a scare in the last couple of minutes. Louisville came storming back in the fourth quarter, cut it to 1. And then we went to work at the line. I think the last 7 points of the game for the Hokies were free throws because they were fouling. And we took a lot of free throws in the game. It was 25 total, and we made 18 of them. But an unlikely leader in points, Lonnie White, 18 points, 5 straight games in double figures for her. Steals, rebounds, assists. She stuffed this stat sheet, Ed.
Yeah, she shot the ball well from three. She was 5 of 6 from the line. Played 35 minutes, which is team high. Yeah, she was really good. This was probably her best game as a Hokie. Just really, really good performance from her. Mackenzie Nelson, I thought, was really good off the bench. 8 points, 1 assist, 3 steals, which was all 3 steals our team had, all came from her. She's pesky on ball, and as a player, I'm excited to watch continue to grow. And then, the kind of star of the show for the women this year, Carly Wenzel, another really good game. 6 of 7 from the line. Didn't shoot it particularly well, but didn't really matter because she had 12 points and 4 assists, leading the team in that category, as she has done all year, and made her free throws when it mattered most. And that's a really good win. That might be the best win of the year.
I think so.
And the Georgia Tech win was really good too, I guess. But that's up there. That's a really good win against a team that knows how to win. Jeff Wall's really good coach. And I thought it was kind of a mismatch. Olivia Cochran and among others, they were way bigger than we were, and it showed in the stat sheet. I mean, they crushed us on the glass. But I was really worried about that. We from a big perspective, we really only play one, and I was worried about Rose getting in foul trouble against Cochran, and it might have been a long night if that had taken place. But Rose did a really good job holding her own, and she did have 4 fouls. She did struggle with foul trouble, but was able to stay in the game and be impactful. And Kale Peterson, really good too. Don't want to gloss over that.
She had a big 3 later in the game, right, Mike?
She had 5 of 6 from the floor and 12 points for the true freshman.
Yeah, the big 3 late. I thought the defense in total was pretty good. Jada Curry is a good player for Louisville. Held her to 4 of 17 shooting. That was huge. If she shoots anywhere near what she usually shoots, you probably lose that game. So
yeah, they were 2 of 18 from 3.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's
Jada
terrible.
Curry,
that is absolutely terrible. That was
2
huge
of 9. 2 of 9 by herself. So I mean, that's huge to hold her down because she's a very good player, very athletic player, and to be able to defend her at a high level is important. She fouled out of the game too, so got the best.
Yeah, you mentioned us having foul trouble, Ed. Like, they had foul trouble. I mean, they had so many fouls in this game. 25 fouls for Louisville, 15 for us. Another, like, it wasn't a super clean game either. Like, we haven't had our best stuff lately, but to not have your best stuff and beat Louisville is awesome. And when they only hit 2 of 18 from 3, like, we must be doing something right on the defensive end. So I was extremely happy to get this win. And I think last time we talked, I said the winner of the Louisville game might be ranked. Well, I wasn't expecting a UVA loss when I said that.
Yeah.
And we might have been able to pop in the rankings had we pulled the UVA game out. But that's all right. We are 48th in the net right now. Where do you think that 48th sits in the ACC, Mike?
Where do I think it sits in the ACC?
Yeah, like, we're 48th. Like, what's our rank in the ACC in terms of the net?
8th?
6th? 7th?
10th.
10th. Wow.
10th. That's how many good teams are in. So as
There's
we continue,
10 top 50 teams.
10 top 50 teams.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And
15.
We're gonna play a lot of those teams.
15 out of the 18 teams in the ACC have double-digit wins.
It's a crazy good conference, man. And so Pitt tonight, they're not very good. They're one of the worst teams. They're not one of the ranked teams. They're not one of the top 50 teams. But then we go to NC State. That's always a tough matchup. They're number 20 right now in the net. And then number 3 Notre Dame on I'm sorry, not in the net, in the AP. NC State's number 20 in the AP. Notre Dame's number 3 in the AP. Those are the 2 games after Pitt. So it's going to get real challenging. It is cool we get that Notre Dame game in Castle on the 30th, though.
Place will be rocking.
Yeah, that's a really good team.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it, but it'll be a fun atmosphere because that's a weekday, actually. Let me check. The 30th. Yeah, that's a weekday.
The 30th
must be a Thursday, right?
Thursday, I believe. Yeah.
They've been playing on
week from today. Yeah.
Yeah. Hidalgo. I'm worried about that one. Go ahead.
One more quick note on the Louisville game. Tech finished minus 14 on the glass. Still won this game by 5. So
yeah, they got smoked. That was my biggest concern, was the size, and it ended up not mattering. But yeah, that's gonna be a problem. As the year progresses. If we run into maybe not as much of a problem in the ACC just stylistically, but our lack of depth at the 5 spot could become a challenge. If there is an easy Achilles heel to point to, it would be that.
I agree.
I still think this team, the women's team, has like more room to grow too. You look at the youth of some of these girls, and like a Mackenzie Nelson and Kale, spin this thing forward a little bit. Whether it's later in ACC play this year or keeping girls around next year, like it's exciting. Like, do you feel that Coach Duffy is a little bit ahead of schedule with this team?
Yeah, I think so. She's recruiting well too. Some of the girls that are signed to come in next year are good players, and she's going to have a challenge in the portal to replace the Matilda Eck and Rose Michaud minutes.
Yeah,
those have just been good, steady veteran minutes from this team. But she took what was left behind and has done a really good job with it. And what was left behind, the cupboard was far from bare. I mean, it was 4 or 5 top 100 recruits. So some talent in that building, and just talent we hadn't seen yet, and experience. And she's done a really good job, shepherding that along. And the girls have done a really good job filling into their new roles. I would love in the offseason to go get a couple of bigs to replace Rose, so that Karis can go back out to her more natural position on the outside. But Karis, Carly, Mackenzie Nelson, Samaya Suffer got hurt, unfortunately, but there was a lot of talent still in that building, despite the departures, and Coach Duffy's done a really good job of taking that and hitting the ground running.
She's a good coach.
Yeah, she's a really good coach. So.
I think we I don't want to say we nailed it quite yet because it's still early in her tenure, but like looks like it's a very good hire, and it's exciting because if they can keep this going in ACC play, they're 4-3 right now, but as we've said, it's a tough conference. I thought 9-9 would be an amazing finish in ACC play if we can do that, and so we're still on pace for that right now. And if they are able to make the tournament, keep the momentum of the program going, and she can prove like she can do maybe not everything that Kenny can do, but like in a different way and be successful, then the recruits will keep coming, the portal will keep coming, and we'll be just fine. But I'm excited about tonight. So hopefully they can get the Pitt win. You can't take anything for granted because we saw like us lapse against Wake. We almost blew that, and they're 0-7. Like we have this team's still young, and they will have these moments where they lose to UVA at home. They almost lose to Wake. But you have the upside of Georgia Tech and Louisville to look at. That's like, okay, when it all comes together, this team can be really good. Do you guys have any final points before we close out here?
Nope, I'm good.
All right.
Good with me too.
All right, man. Well, listen, let's make sure you guys are subscribed. Sons of Saturday channel on YouTube, Sons of Saturday podcast feed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're hitting sonsofsaturday.com for all of our articles and podcasts. You can find everything on the website. And until next time, go Hokies.